Hello, this is the Ancient History Lecture for Friday, September 25th, 2020. Yeah, that's the year. Picking up and continuing our story briefly before the video lesson of mine is done, before you see the link to Obsession, if you have permission. In 2012, the year after bin Laden was killed, Libya was in chaos. Arab socialist dictator, it's Ba'athist dictator Muammar Gaddafi, who had been a bad boy since taking over Libya in 1969, had decided after we conquered Iraq and Afghanistan to play nice and stop funding terror and stop his nuclear aspirations. However, we still let him fall 6 years later in 2012. When he falls, Libya falls into chaos of warlordism, where these militant street gangs, Islamists mostly, are fighting for control of various regions of Libya, including Libya's second city, Benghazi. Benghazi has a U.S. consulate. It's like a junior embassy. Still counts as U.S. soil. And our ambassador happens to be visiting around the time of the anniversary of September 11th, the 11th anniversary of September 11th, 2012. There are a series of indicators that say that there's probably going to be trouble there. But our State Department decides not to increase security. Instead, security is primarily provided by a group of American mercenary contractors. Our consulate, not our embassy. I can understand that. There are all sorts of potential threats. You make your choices about which ones you choose to react to. What I don't understand is when the attack happened, it happened around sunset that night of September 11th. Okay, attacks happen. This attack involved mobs of people in the streets. It involved vehicles. It involved mortars. So now our people are under attack. Our ambassador happens to be on premises, and calls go out for help. We have Americans across town who are ordered to stand down and not to come to the aid of the consulate. The attacks go on towards midnight. We have assets in the Mediterranean Sea, including aircraft carriers and Marines. Across the Mediterranean Sea, in Italy, is Aviano Air Base, which is a major NATO base that contains massive American air assets plus soldiers. All of these assets are within a few hours away, but the attack goes on for 13 hours into the next morning, and nothing comes. No attacks come from the American air power or the American Marines or the Americans across town. That I don't understand. In this attack, 4 Americans are killed, including 3 contractors, mercenaries tasked to protect the embassy or the consulate, and the U.S. ambassador, Christopher Steele. An American ambassador dying by violence is a very unusual event. And this was, again, a consulate, which means legally it was American soil. The attack was predicted. I can understand people not getting it. The attack began. You can't prevent all things like that. But the attack was never responded to adequately. Never. That I don't understand. I don't understand the reasoning. I do understand that the decision was our Secretary of State at the time, and it was at the very least tacitly approved by our president at the time. On 9/11/2012, our Secretary of State was Hillary Rodham Clinton, and our president was Barack Obama. They made the choice not to support our people. Even the planes that eventually took out the survivors were not American Air Force planes or Navy planes. I don't get it. They actually tried blaming this on video that was anti-Islamic, that was put onto YouTube by an American. Like the government could stop that, and like video could produce spontaneous riots. Well, I can see it might, But this was not spontaneous riots. This was an organized attack by Islamist terrorist militias that had been predicted before that video was launched. In any event, the Benghazi massacre is still an open wound for a lot of Americans today. Not so much because it started, but because it was never properly answered by American force. In 2013, at the Patriots' Day is a holiday commemorating an event in the American Revolution, celebrated by Massachusetts and the state of Maine. They have the Boston Marathon, one of the greatest American long-distance races. And near the finish line, two Islamic brothers from the Caucasus, immigrants to the United States, legal immigrants, the Tsarnaev brothers, create bombs out of high-pressure cookers that explode near the finish line as the race is concluding, killing Bostonians, wounding Bostonians, and shocking Bostonians. This is an attack on a race, but it's also a road race, but it's also an attack on the American notion that our cities are safe. In the aftermath, we identify the Tsarnaev brothers, we pursue them, and as the law enforcement authorities are closing in, the Tsarnaev brothers split, and one of them panics and runs over the other one. Couldn't happen. Well, in any event, the surviving Tsarnaev brother is captured, and he has been convicted and is in jail. Also in 2015, also in 2013, the Islamic State in Syria, ISIS, or what some people call the Islamic State in the Levant, ISIL, because they have ambitions beyond Syria, was established as a caliphate to unify radical Islam, and the implication was that the Islamic Messiah, the Mahdi, was going to appear and take control of the Islamic State and conquer. And at first, in the first couple of years of ISIS's existence, they actually expanded to control a pretty large area, about almost the size, a significant chunk of Syria and Iraq, conquering city after city. Looked like they were unstoppable for a while. Very scary group. And they were also known for executing in mass Muslims that didn't practice their particular variant of Islam, and of course the Christians of Iraq. In 2014, the Boko Haram terror group, which are North African Islamist terrorists, invade a girls' school, capture all the students, and drag them into the jungle to be their wives. Those girls are pretty much never seen again. In 2015, in Paris, France, the capital of a country well known for free speech and political satire, a magazine exists called Charlie Hebdo. Charlie Hebdo made fun of everyone, makes fun of everyone. Christians, Jews, conservatives, liberals, Americans, Germans, Frenchmen, everyone. They made fun of everyone. Well, they decided to make fun of the Prophet Muhammad. So they drew some cartoons of Muhammad doing silly, stupid stuff. And they published it. Now remember, Islam is iconoclastic. It doesn't like holy images, even holy images. Arabic Muslims don't even like realistic art because they say it offends God, because God's the only creator of real things, and a human being shouldn't try to emulate the creator so closely. So Arab art, Islamic art, tends to be geometrical. And there's always a flaw as a statement that I am not trying to compete with God, I am not trying to aspire to perfection. That's his realm, not ours. So to depict the Prophet Muhammad in any visual medium is really, really, really inciting to many Muslims. So, of course, the proper reaction is a couple of weeks after publishing this, Islamist militants, Islamist terrorists break into the offices of Charlie Hebdo and stab everyone to death. Everyone that's there that doesn't escape, that they can find, stabbed to death. Yeah. If you can't be in Paris and speak freely, or New York, or anywhere in the free world and speak freely, even if that free speech offends people, then you don't have free speech. And the very message that the Islamist militants, the terrorists, wanted to send at that point was, You don't have free speech. If you burn Qurans, if you draw Muhammad, if you defame us, we're coming for you, and we're coming for you with lethal force. That is an attempt to chill free speech and steal it from us in our own countries. Also, that year in 2015, there was a couple in San Bernardino, California, that had been welcomed into the community. He was a Muslim. I'm not sure, honestly, if he's an American born Muslim or a long term immigrant, legal immigrant Muslim. I know that he went overseas and found his wife and married her, and the story seems to be that she radicalized him. In any event, they both worked for a social service agency in San Bernardino, California. She'd become pregnant over the summer, and her coworkers got together and held a baby shower for her. And that's a pretty nice thing to do. So they were invited to the company Christmas party. They show up, husband and wife, to these people who had befriended them, welcomed them in to their community, given them a baby shower, and they killed as many of their coworkers as they possibly could. That's the San Bernardino Massacre, 2015. In 2016, a nightclub in Orlando, Florida, largely frequented by homosexual men, is targeted by Islamist terrorists, and there is a massacre there. In 2016, also, in Palestine, the Stab campaign takes off. I may show you a commercial as part of the video of a little Palestinian girl, 5, 6, 7 years old, telling the holy warriors to stab, stab, stab in the name of God. Basically, around Israel, any Arab, the idea was the terrorists were trying to instill into the Israeli people that any Arab at any time could suddenly produce a knife and start stabbing. And since in Israel, one of the cardinal rules is that Arabs and Jews should try to live together in peace, there are Arabs and Jews that mix all the time, every day. So it reaches its height in 2016. In 2017, ISIS is degraded and almost destroyed. In fact, as a national aspirant power, they are destroyed. And this is in large part because of American military pressure. In 2017, also, the ongoing Syrian civil war continues to buffet Western Europe with refugees, unassimilated culturally, who are causing increasing problems to the European host nations that have invited them. In 2018, in New Mexico, a terror compound is exposed, run, for American Muslims or Muslims in America who want to be radicalized and learn how to kill their fellow Americans. In Sri Lanka at Easter, a bunch of Christian churches are bombed in the Easter bombings. Sri Lanka is that little teardrop-shaped island south of India. It used to be called Ceylon. It's where the tea comes from. In 2019, also, at London Bridge, there's a mass stabbing by militant Islamist terrorists. In 2020, in Kabul, Afghanistan, there's an attack at a Gurdwara. I knew this one. Basically, it's an attack upon a non-Islamist organization. And in Yolo, the Philippines, there are also bombings of Christian communities. And again, these are just the surface. If you go online and look for terrorist attacks by year, you will see much, much, much more. So, here's where we are. I have given you a brief overview of human history by focusing on the story of the origins behind the atrocities of September 11th, 2001. I've gone back to the prophet Abraham, the world's first monotheist, the developments of Judaism, of Christianity, of Islam, the history of those three religions up to the present day, including why and how those attacks happened. Monday, you have Spielvogel Chapter Survey 2, due. You have, that means reading Spielvogel Chapter 2, doing Baker Workbook Chapter 2. You also have the half-page terrorism essay, Who's the Enemy in the War on Terror, and How Should We Fight Them in Order to Win. On Monday or Tuesday, there will also be some kind of test that will cover the entire period from the